It's finally time to get back on the 356. This is what's been the holdup. These are the hinges for the seats, and all the upholstery's been done. The seats are complete. The chrome has taken a little while, and I've gone to 2 different shops to get the chrome done. Finally, it's acceptable to where I can now assemble the seats. And I haven't been able to drive the car because I haven't had any seats, or at least any seat backs. So this video is going to be all about how to reassemble these seat hinges. There's springs and bolts and things that get staked in place, some rivets, some clips, all kinds of stuff. And then this is a first look at the seats. And this is what's called fawn. It's a little hard to find it. I can put a link in the description below, but this was done by K&H. So these, I'm really happy with what they've done here. New seat foams. It's got the correct pleat. It's got the correct perforations. This is actually vinyl. It's not leather. My car came with vinyl, so I'm trying to keep this as original as possible. But I think it looks like leather. It feels great. They're really comfortable. All this hardware has been cleaned up, ultrasonic cleaned, and just lightly oiled. So we're ready to do the assembly. I'm going to assemble it dry, without any kind of grease or anything, make sure all the components are fitting back together. So for instance, you know, things that have been chromed sometimes won't go back in the hole. So we'll make sure, like, that probably should go down a little deeper. So we might have to remove a little bit of the chrome buildup, but that's kind of typical. You can see it's a little jagged right there. So we'll get all the pieces to fit first and then do final assembly. I did take some photos of disassembly. Yeah, you want it to be a tight fit, but it needs to go in just a little bit deeper. In general, they taped up a lot of the innards so that the chrome buildup wouldn't be too bad. Like all the pivots, for instance, are taped up. Just using a drum sander, and I've backed away from my normal work table. Okay, now that fits nice and flush now on that side. And no effort on that, it goes right in. So that is a perfect fit. Not too loose, not too tight. That's good. We'll take the tape off. Triple chrome is basically copper, nickel, and chrome. So you're seeing some bare copper here. That's fine. The important part of this feature is that this gear can roll inside here, so there shouldn't be any, you know, obstructions to this gear from rolling around in there. Prior to sending this out to chrome, I had taken all the old grease and stuff out of there. So this gear needs to be able to spin freely. So it's doing well until it gets right about to here. There's a little bit of buildup on the chrome. Everything fits great until it goes right about there. So I just need to clear that out with the Dremel tool, and also make sure the snap ring is clear up here. I just switched to something a little smaller to go inside here and grab those sharp edges right there. So we'll go real slow on this one. All right, we got it all the way in, but it's still a little hard to turn. Just the last little bit is just becoming a little bit of a tight spot. And I've been using this CV grease quite a bit lately. I like it because it's synthetic and it's not going to get hard over time. It's got some moly in it, and I don't think it's gonna be like the original grease that turns into wax. And then to clean these little snap ring grooves out, I'm just using a little tiny, I guess it's a wire wheel, but it's real gentle on the slot there. Go ahead and put some snap rings on there just to make sure. Oops, this is the wrong pliers. Squeezing the wrong way. These are little snap rings, and believe it or not, that's what holds this whole assembly together. This is a little cover that it needs to fit. So we just want to make sure that the snap rings are working in their grooves. So I'm just, you know, moving this around in the groove to make sure it's nice and clear. And it's got a good grip on the shaft. Yeah, these are getting a good bite on there. So much so they're hard to remove, so that'll work. Now that the grooves are clear, we should make sure this cover fits on before we get all the springs and stuff installed. So we just want to fit every component ahead of time. And I can tell this one's going to have a hard time going in, because it's got chrome all around the edges and there's chrome all around the inside here. So these two pieces, even though they came apart, are having a hard time going back together. So we want it to be a tight fit, but we might have to remove a little bit of chrome, probably from the inside of here, to get that to go in. Because you really don't want to hammer the stuff in. It needs to go together with just hand pressure. And this time I'm going to use a little bit of tape around the perimeter just in case I slip. I don't damage the chrome. This part isn't really visible, but we want to do a tidy job if possible. It snapped together, however. It took me 2 hours to get this cover to fit inside this housing. And it wasn't just a matter of like removing a little bit of flashing or whatever. I had to basically reshape both parts in order to get it to fit. And there's been some damage to the cover because the chrome is just kind of flaking off on corners where I had to undercut it, or I had to, you know, create some space, and it weakened the chrome, and now it's kind of chipping off. So chroming is an additive process. You know, you're creating, you know, layers and layers and layers, but they didn't strip it down to the base metal, which is steel, and build it back up. They basically plated over what was there before. And then to make matters worse, they hammered the inside. You see all these like hammer marks? They used the wrong hammer and basically stretched the metal to make this thing bigger and opened up the sides. So I had to take a considerable amount of material off the edges to make it fit at all. And it's not in a few spots, it's basically everywhere, both on the cover and on the internals of this piece. It's got areas, this whole perimeter had to be removed. So I was going in with the feeler gauges and making all these marks and trying to determine the least amount of material to remove, but it was significant. It's really hard on all the tools because chrome's very hard. Like it eats up these little abrasive discs, and I was using carbide tools and some of the bigger grinders, like, you know, even this big guy, just to get the parts to fit. So I think it's incredibly short-sighted of the plater to disregard the original shape of the parts and to make assembly virtually impossible without reshaping them, including undoing all the damage they did onto the inside. So I'm gonna have a word with the plater, and I won't tell you who it is yet. They're probably gonna have to replate this piece because it's already flaking off. Some of this is to be expected, but I don't think this is right. This is, not helpful to anybody to just add on to the parts don't fit. And they clearly could have, checked the fit as they were polishing this stuff, but they didn't do that. And then they taped off some of the areas that shouldn't be plated, which is fine, but the areas that are exposed, like the end of these pins, they're not plated at all. But I am gonna continue with the assembly, and hopefully not everything needs to be reworked. I mean, we'll hope for the best. And we need to make sure this can go inside here, which it's not. Here we go again. So now we are ready to assemble. So I'm gonna just put a light coat of grease on this washer, and you can see the little shape on there. That's the way it came off. That's the impression of this nut right there on there. So I'm just gonna try to center it as best I can. Also, make sure that this gear is installed. This gear has to be in there. That's already been greased from before. We want that to spin nice and free. There we go, and just thread the nut down a little bit. And this thing, this thing should move, and that gear should be turning. See, the splines on that gear are turning, and it's going through its full range of motion because there's a stop right here, and then there's a stop when this gear basically runs into this little feature right there. There's a little tab that gear runs into. So this will be fully reclined. The seat's basically leaning all the way back, and then this will be fully upright. So that's all working as it should. We can tighten this nut down just a little bit, but we don't want it to have too much friction, so got to find a happy medium there. This lock plate should keep that thing from turning, so that's where we want it right there. And then I just will I'll put new stakes in. This is the previous stake I hammered flat, so the new stake will fall far away from that one, so I think it's okay to reuse that plate. So that should keep it locked in. That's not going to turn. And then the spring will come on top of that. Okay, the spring is in there, but I think I've discovered an error. It's too loose. It's too easy to put in. It should have some pre-tension on it. And I realized that if it's super easy to take this out. If I was to put it in this way and stretch this all the way over here, I think it's too much tension. So I went back and I looked at the pictures and I discovered that these things are different. There's a left and a right on these silver buttons. So I think I have the wrong one put in there, because when I look at my pictures, this slot should be perpendicular to this slot right here. This guy should not be pointing directly up at that. It should be perpendicular. So I just got to take it apart and put it back together again using the other side. This is how it should be according to my pictures. It should be, when this is fully this way, it should be perpendicular to that. That's what the pictures show. And I think that's going to make assembly a lot easier, because I just have to stretch it up to there. And that should be correct. I don't want to break the spring putting it together incorrectly. So if we just swap this out for this one, confirm these are different. Yep. Okay, that's much better. The slot is roughly perpendicular with that when it's in its upright position. So now we just need to stretch this over there. And it is possible to put the spring in upside down, but if you do that, then it's gonna be acting the wrong way. So we really want it to work like this. So when you stretch it open, this distance gets longer, and so it's going to be pulling apart on the hook part, and I think that's correct. So this is the correct direction. So now we just need to stretch it over there, but it's basically just 2 pins, so we can put them on the spring like that, and then just kind of stretch this over. So these 2 screws can go inside the spring like that. And it actually kind of holds itself. And then if we just engage it there on the slotted screw, yeah, just like that. And then we're just going to work it around, hopefully. This time I have the pole pointing the other way. And I think that's it. That should be right. And it's going to take a lot of force to bend it, but it does move. So that I think is correct. Okay, this is for the side closest to the door. So this piece doesn't go on. And so I think it's just the cover on this one goes on. So finally we put this back together. Luckily I pre-fit it, so I expect it to go together easily, hopefully. Make sure I put my glasses on so they don't hit me in the eye. This bigger one, we'll see. Yep, that goes on there. That one's on. Yeah, so all the clips are on, everything is nice and flat. The defects will probably get covered up when the seat's up against this. I hope that's the case. Mostly we're interested in the outside, and the outside does look great. We're just got a couple defects on there, so I need to think about whether I'm going to go get this replated again. More evidence of hammering and debauchery here. So like for instance, this piece that needs to go in there's no way it's going to fit. So once again, have to clearance all this and hopefully not damage the chrome, but it's almost inevitable. We got to clean out all these slots again and basically make sure this cover fits. It's not going to drop in place, I guarantee you that. So this side might be a little bit better than the other side because this one doesn't have any hammer marks, only right there, which I wish they wouldn't have done that because it's okay that this has a couple waves in it. It's on the inside. I would rather it fits than like have a little wave right there. This is the other side, the door side of the driver's side. So let's see if we can't get this one to clip in. Nope. I think we're pretty close there. And then this side gets this doohickey, which I think goes through here, like so. Now this spring here has a long leg, and it should go, I think, this way, because the spring is pushing this lever down. Get this to find a new tooth. There we go. So the action on this should be up. You want to recline, you have to pull this up to release the latch, and then it'll go. You can see I've already done tons of clearancing here on the inside as needed. This cover is a little bit better off because it hasn't been hammered as much, but it's still, you know, tricky to get on, so we're going to have to finagle it as always. And get that clip right there in. Take what we can get. Okay, so this is the side you see when you open the door, and it doesn't have any blemishes here on the inside. It's just a little bit better fit as it went together. Didn't have to do as much grinding, although I did do some grinding on the interior, but this external cover is great. Now the passenger side gets this extra bracket in here. This is the inner one, but the outer one also gets this. This is a little hook down here, and that prevents the seat from tilting forward when you hit the brakes. So the driver's side, at least on the C's, don't get this hook. It's just eliminated. And then it has this special spring that gives it some tension. There's a little hole here that spring fits in, so make sure that that's clear. Nothing's stuck in there. And then we just put that through there. And then this spring will wrap around that shaft. So now that provides that spring tension. You see how that spring works? This stud protrudes through that cover right there, so we just have to make sure it all lines up. That seems to be good. This washer goes underneath there. I forgot that, so I'm just gonna make sure that goes in place. So this is the part I've been waiting for a long time, to get the seats back together. So make sure that fits on there still. There is a washer. This is the original one. It goes there. And then this shaft that connects the two hinges needs to be installed as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and wiggle that in at the same time. And then there's a special bezel with a square shape to it. So that square locks in there. And then there's another kind of special washer, and then the screw head. So let's get that going in there. This screw was re-chromed, so the threads are a little tighter than usual, I think. I think I'm going to clean those threads a little bit because I don't want to put so much torque on it that I damage the head of the screw. So we'll try to do this carefully. Just taking a little bit of the chrome off, which is kind of what I want. So much better engagement there with the stud there on the seat. So this should only rotate a slight amount. It's locked in there, and then we crank it down, and that lock washer should keep that secure. And each time this pivots up and down, it's not going to loosen. That should be how it is. Nice. So that's it, both sides connected. On the driver's side, it's just a bare spline shaft, and this is zinc plated. This is chrome plated, so you can see the difference in color. I don't think there's a sleeve that goes over this side. I could be wrong on that one, but if you know, let me know. I think this might be exposed. The passenger side does have this little sleeve on it that makes it look a little bit nicer, but I don't have a sleeve that doesn't have these hooks on it, and it's not in the parts diagram, so I think that's correct. Okay, so now the seat back should just go on, I hope. Line up those things, and I'm using some older screws that have damaged threads just to get this mounted, and then we'll hopefully swap them out with some nicer chrome ones, or I'll get new screws. Okay, 2's enough to hold that together. Come over to this side. Hopefully you do the same. I was a little concerned with the new foams making this hard to do, but this is not that hard. This is fitting just perfect. The screw is, I think, bent, so I'm not going to do any more on that one. That one's a bad screw. I think if we pull this in, now we might be able to get this one to engage. Yeah, just barely gets the nut on the inside there. And I'm not going to crank these down too tight. We'll just make sure these don't come loose later on. Yeah, this screw's bent too. See how that wobbles? It's horrible. And that is the assembled seat. It's ready to go in the car. It actually looks good. So once again, K&H did an amazing job on these seats. This one's the driver's seat, which is what I've been waiting on. I am going to go put this in the back of my car, take it over to the storage place that I have the 356 parked, put the seat in, and I'm going to drive it back. I will bring it here in the garage, and we'll get both seats put in. And there you go. It's the first time I've driven this car in almost, I think, 6 months, something like that. So the seat hinges, look great. The seats look great. You're going to see a lot more brown in the interior. It's going to have a light brown interior, but I really love the combo between kind of the dark brown and the Irish green. So good to be driving the car again.